"Can you pretend to be my granddaughter for 5 minutes?" the old man asked at the bank. She had no. The old man grabbed my wrist just before I reached the exit. "Please," he whispered. "Can you pretend to be my granddaughter for 5 minutes?" I froze. We were standing inside a crowded bank on a Tuesday afternoon, surrounded by people who had absolutely no idea what was happening. The old man looked exhausted. His gray hair was messy, his brown coat was worn at the elbows, and he clutched a small blue savings book against his chest. I glanced at his hand around my wrist. "Sir, are you okay?" His eyes moved toward the security desk. Then toward a sharply dressed man standing near the entrance. "I will explain everything," he whispered. "But right now, I need you to trust me." I should have walked away. I didn't. Instead, I nodded. "Okay. 5 minutes." The old man's shoulders dropped with relief. "Thank you." He suddenly smiled and raised his voice. "There you are, sweetheart. I was beginning to think you weren't coming." I stared at him. "Sweetheart?" He placed an arm gently around my shoulder. I quickly understood. We were pretending. "Grandpa," I said awkwardly. The word sounded strange coming from my mouth. The old man smiled. "That's my girl." A few people looked over. The sharply dressed man near the entrance also looked at us. And his expression changed. He immediately walked toward us. The old man leaned closer to me. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "don't let that man take the blue book." My heart began pounding. "What blue book?" He held it tighter. "This one." The man reached us. "Mr. Harris," he said coldly. "You really shouldn't make this difficult." The old man looked at him and smiled. "My granddaughter just arrived. I have nothing to discuss with you." The man glanced at me. "Granddaughter?" "Yes," the old man replied. The man looked suspicious. "Interesting. I didn't know you had one." I felt my stomach tighten. The old man squeezed my shoulder. "She lives out of state. She came to visit me today." The man stared at me for several seconds. Then he smiled. "Well, that's convenient." I didn't know what he meant. But the old man's fingers trembled. The bank manager suddenly approached. "Mr. Harris, we need you to come to the office." The old man shook his head. "No. Sir, this concerns your account." I said no. The manager lowered his voice. "Please don't cause a scene." The old man looked at me. Then he handed me the blue savings book. "Hold this." I stared at him. "Why?" "Because they are trying to take it from me." The manager's face went pale. The sharply dressed man stepped forward. "That's enough." He reached for the book. I instinctively stepped backward. "No." Everyone became silent. The man stared at me. "You don't understand what you're holding." The old man smiled. "That is exactly why she should be holding it." I looked down at the book. There was nothing special about it. Just an old blue savings book. But then I noticed something. There was a folded piece of paper tucked inside. I opened it slightly. On the paper was a name. My name. I looked at the old man. "How do you know my name?" He didn't answer. Instead, he whispered. "Because your grandmother wrote it there." My breath caught. "My grandmother?" He nodded. "She was my closest friend." The room seemed to disappear around me. "My grandmother died 12 years ago." "I know. How did you know her?" The old man looked toward the windows. "We met here. In this very bank." Then he looked back at me. "And she made me promise something." "What?" He swallowed. If anything ever happened to her, I was supposed to find you. I couldn't speak. The manager stepped closer. Mr. Harris, this isn't appropriate. The old man ignored him. He opened the blue book. Inside was a photograph. A young woman stood beside him. I recognized her immediately. It was my grandmother. I had seen that picture before. But never with him. Who are you? I whispered. He smiled sadly. My name is Daniel Harris. He pointed to the photograph. And 50 years ago, your grandmother saved my life. The sharply dressed man suddenly interrupted. This is ridiculous. Daniel turned toward him. No. What's ridiculous is that you think I've forgotten. The man stepped closer. You're an old man with a failing memory. Daniel laughed. Maybe. Then he tapped the blue book. But my memory isn't the only thing I have. He pulled out another document. The bank manager immediately recognized it. His face changed. Daniel handed it to me. Read it. I unfolded the paper. It was an old legal document. At the bottom was my grandmother's signature. And beside it was Daniel's. The document said that a certain account would remain untouched until a specific person came forward. Me. I looked up. Why me? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Because your grandmother trusted you. The sharply dressed man shook his head. This is absurd. Daniel looked at him. You have spent 3 years trying to convince me that the money belonged to your company. The man became silent. Daniel continued. But your father stole it. My eyes widened. The bank manager looked terrified. Daniel pointed toward the document. This account contains money that was illegally transferred decades ago. Your grandmother discovered it. He looked at me. She spent years trying to return it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why didn't she tell me? Because she was afraid. Afraid of what? Daniel looked toward the man. People like him. The man's expression hardened. You have no proof. Daniel smiled. I do. He opened the blue book again. Behind the photograph was a small memory card taped to the paper. The man suddenly lunged forward. Security rushed toward him. He stopped. Daniel calmly said, 5 minutes are almost over. I looked at him. What happens after 5 minutes? He smiled. You stop pretending to be my granddaughter. He paused. And become exactly what your grandmother wanted you to be. The bank manager took the memory card and contacted the authorities. Within minutes, police officers entered the bank. The sharply dressed man was taken away. I stood there completely stunned. Daniel sat down on a chair. For the first time, he looked incredibly tired. I sat beside him. Why did you choose me? He looked at me. Because your grandmother told me something. What? He smiled. She said, if you ever meet my granddaughter, you'll know her. She won't walk away when someone needs help. I laughed softly through my tears. She really said that? She did. I looked at the old photograph again. Did you love her? Daniel looked at the picture for a long moment. More than I ever admitted. Then he handed me the blue book. She was the family I never had. I closed my fingers around it. So what happens now? Daniel smiled. Now you go home. And you? He shrugged. I suppose I finally keep my promise. What promise? To protect what she left behind. I stood up. Then I stopped. Daniel? Yes? You don't have to pretend anymore. He smiled. Neither do you. I hugged him. For 5 minutes, I had pretended to be his granddaughter. But somehow, by the time I walked out of that bank, the relationship no longer felt like a pretend game. It felt like family. And years later, whenever someone asks me how I met the man I now call Grandpa Daniel, I tell them the truth. It started in a bank. With an old blue savings book. A dangerous secret. And a simple question from a lonely old man. Can you pretend to be my granddaughter for 5 minutes? Those 5 minutes changed both our lives forever.